The Galactic Council chamber stood high above the clouds, a massive dome of crystal and steel orbiting the peaceful planet of Varelia. Inside, the most powerful alien leaders in the galaxy had gathered for a special session. Long, curved desks formed a wide circle. Hovering screens floated between them. Each counselor came from a different species, some covered in scales, some in feathers, others with shining metallic skin. At the center of the chamber, a large screen glowed to life. "This," said High Counselor Trevik of the Solari, his golden eyes narrowing, "is humanity's history. Today we judge whether Earth may join the Galactic Union or be locked out forever." The room darkened. The footage began. The screen showed fire, war, screams, soldiers in mud-covered uniforms charged through trenches filled with smoke and death. Tanks rolled over broken buildings. Bombers dropped payloads that turned entire cities into craters. The alien leaders leaned forward, fascinated and horrified. "This was called World War I," a narrator explained. "A global conflict fought by humans with rifles, gas, and steel." Trevek scoffed. "Primitive and brutal. Typical." The footage jumped forward in time. Now came massive ships at sea, aerial dogfights, atomic explosions turning night into day. "World War II," the voice continued. "Humanity's deadliest conflict." Gasps filled the room as mushroom clouds lit up the screen. A feathered alien clicked its beak in disgust. "They destroyed their own cities." The camera shifted to show concentration camps, bodies, horror even. The toughest counselors looked away. Still, one figure in the back of the room never moved. He sat on a metal bench, his head slightly bowed, hands folded, wore a dark gray coat with a small Earth emblem on the shoulder. His name was Commander Elias Reese, but no one in the room cared to ask. They believed he was just an observer, just a quiet human. They were wrong. The footage continued. Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, protests, flags, fire. "Why do they fight so much?" asked Counselor Drael, a glowing orb with flickering lights for a face. "Because they're violent." "Animals," Trevik replied. "Earth has known nothing but war. Even now, they fight among themselves." He pointed a long silver finger at the screen. "Tell me, friends, do we want these savages joining our peaceful galaxy?" Most counselors murmured in agreement. "We don't need another war species," someone said. "We already have the Jorok. They burn their own planet," another added. "They poison their oceans, cut down forests, and kill their own kind for oil." Reese said nothing. His eyes were still on the screen, now showing a soldier dragging a wounded comrade through gunfire, refusing to leave him behind. The footage jumped again. Now it showed modern, Earth-crowded cities. Police drones, spaceports, skyscrapers, humans staring at glowing screens in their hands. "This is their current civilization," said the narrator. "Still fragmented, still divided, still dangerous." Trevik stood tall. "We must vote. Earth is not ready. It may never be ready." The council chamber erupted into a wave of alien voices, some angry, some amused. Then came the moment no one expected. A voice, deep and rough, broke the noise like thunder. "You show our pain, but not our purpose." Every head turned. Commander Elias Reese had stood up. Trevik sneered. "You were not given the right to speak human." Reese stepped forward slowly, each step deliberate. His boots echoed across the crystal floor. "You watched our wars like they were some savage sport. You saw death, fire, and fear. But you saw only the surface." He stopped in the center of the circle, beneath the floating screen. His eyes swept across the alien faces, cold, sharp, fearless. "I fought in those wars," he said. "Not the old ones, no. But I bled. I watched friends die. I gave orders. That haunted me every night for 30 years. Yeah." A younger counselor snorted. "You admit your species is violent." Reese didn't blink. "We are violent when we need to be. But that's not what makes us dangerous." He reached into his Coton pulled out a small metal tag dog tags, stained and worn. He tossed them onto the floor. They belonged to Private Jenna Haskins. She was 19. First mission. She shielded 3 civilians with her body. Didn't even hesitate. The room was quiet now. Where was that in your footage, Reese asked. Or were the medics pulling enemies off the battlefield just to save a life? Where were the soldiers refusing orders to bomb villages? Or were the mothers holding their children in the rubble? Trevik stepped forward, eyes burning. We judge based on facts, human, not emotion. Reese took a breath. Then let me give you some facts. He pointed to the footage behind him. World War I. We lost millions. Then we built the League of Nations to stop it from happening again. It failed, but we tried. War II? We ended fascism. We saved millions from death camps. We created the United Nations. The Cold War. We stopped nuclear annihilation by not firing a single shot. For 40 years, 2 great powers stood ready to destroy each other. Chose not to. He looked around, voice steady. We're not perfect. But we learn, we adapt, we survive. Trevek growled, and yet you continue to fight. Reese stepped closer to him. So do you. Just fight in shadows. You let weaker species starve while you debate. You watched the Zarnok genocide 10 years before acting, some counselors flinched. You think our wars make us unworthy? They made us who we are. Strong, careful, dangerous, yes, but only when pushed. He turned to the rest of the room. You want to fear us? And fear the fact that we understand war and still hope for peace? The silence was thick, heavy. No one knew what to say. Then a tall insectoid counselor named Keelix leaned forward. Commander Reese, if what you say is true, then why are you here? Why not let Earth speak for itself? Reese looked down at the dog tags, his voice quiet. Because I've buried too many good people. I've seen what happens when we're misunderstood. I came to stop the next war before it begins. He turned and walked back to his seat. But before he sat down, he looked over his shoulder. You judged us by our scars. But scars mean we survived. The chamber stayed quiet long after Reese sat down. Finally, Trevik stood again, his face unreadable. We will delay the vote. There was a soft hum of surprise. We must reconsider. This matter is not simple. Screens turned off. The lights brightened as the counselors left the chamber. Many glanced back at the silent humans sitting alone. Some looked curious, some looked nervous, but none looked dismissive. Later that night, in a small chamber aboard the council station, 2 shadowed figures met. He's too dangerous, one said. He's just one man, said the other. No, the first replied. He's something worse. They leaned forward. He's a symbol. The next day, the Galactic Council chamber was silent, but tense. Alien leaders whispered behind closed doors. Some were curious. Some were angry. Others were afraid. A human had spoken. The galaxy had listened. Commander Elias Reese sat alone. In the observation booth once again, he wore the same faded gray coat, the same hard look in his eyes. This time, however, more than a few counselors gave him cautious glances as they entered. But Trevik, of the Solari, walked in last. His gold eyes locked on Reese. The human will not speak today, he announced. Yesterday's outburst was tolerated, today it is not. Reese didn't respond. On the main screen, more footage played. This time it showed peaceful planets' green skies. Singing cities, floating gardens. The message was clear. This is what the Union is. Peace, order, harmony. Then, slowly the footage shifted. A small human spaceship landed on a distant planet. Alien villagers watched as humans in uniform stepped out. One child ran forward, smiling. The human bent down and gave her a wrapped candy. A few counselors smiled, but then the footage changed. A different planet, a different group of humans. Explosions, armed soldiers, civilians running. The screen froze on a human dropping fire from the sky. This, said Trevek, turning to the chamber, is what we face. 2 Earths, one offers a hand, the other brings flame. He looked directly at Reese. Which is real? the council murmured. Then, without warning, a quiet voice echoed through the chamber. Both Reese had stood. Trevik slammed a fist on the podium. You were not invited to speak. But Kelix, the insectoid counselor from before, raised. A clawed hand let him speak. Trevik's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside. Reese walked slowly to the center. Again, his boots sounded louder than yesterday. He looked around the room. Some eyes were curious. Some were cold. A few were almost hopeful. Reese began to speak. You want to know who we are? Then you need to understand one thing first. He paused. We are not one species. We are thousands of cultures. Billions. Of hearts. Millions of choices. Some right. Many wrong. He nodded at the paused footage. Yes, we've burned planets. We've spilled blood. We've made terrible mistakes. He stepped closer to the screen. But we've also rebuilt. Cities we didn't destroy. We fed enemies who wanted us dead. We've lifted our rivals when they fell. He looked straight at Trevik. You call us primitive. But primitives don't build space stations. Primitives don't weep for their enemies. The room was still. Reese reached into his coat again. This time, he pulled out a small, glowing cube, a human data crystal. He placed it into the chamber's translator core. Suddenly, a new image appeared on the screen. A war zone, not Earth. Not a human war. Alien cities under attack by unknown machines. The caption read, The Kreel Incursion, Galactic Year 12917. It was old footage. Most in the chamber had never seen it. But in the chaos, one could see something else. Humans. Human medics, dragging wounded aliens to safety. Human soldiers holding the line against Kreel machines. One, human bloody, limping, carrying 2 alien children through gunfire. Why are you showing this? Trevik demanded. Reese didn't answer him. He answered the room. That footage is from 60 years ago. We had no obligation to fight. The Kreel weren't our war. But we fought anyway. He turned to Trevik. Didn't include that in. Your review, did you? Trevik said nothing. Reese continued. There's a word you've used. Primitive. I've heard it 3 times now. He paced slowly. Do you know what we call someone who risks their life to protect strangers? A hero, not a primitive. He turned to Kelix. You said yesterday that I was dangerous. You're right. Humans are dangerous, but not because we love war. Pointed to his chest because when we love fiercely. When we protect completely. And when we fight with everything we are. Some counselors leaned in, others looked away, but no one interrupted. Not this time, Reese. Lowered his voice. You want to know who we are? He touched the crystal again. More footage played. A human soldier handing his last ration to a starving alien child. A human engineer sacrificing herself to shut down a reactor before it melted a city. A medic crying. Over an enemy soldier's body, whispering, I'm sorry. Reese turned back to them. You judge us by war? Fine. But no, our greatest warriors are the ones who came home and built peace. Who stopped more wars than they started. Who gave everything so others wouldn't have to. The screen flickered off. The room was still. Reese looked around one last time. You want to call us primitive? Go ahead, but if you do, remember this. You called us primitive. Before we saved your galaxy once, how many times do we need to do it before you listen? He stepped back to his seat. This time, no one stopped. Trevik's face was stone, but even he didn't speak right away. Kelix rose instead. Perhaps it is time we reconsider the full picture. He looked at the others. Perhaps Earth deserves more than judgment. Perhaps it deserves understanding. The chamber echoed with soft murmurs. And then, something unexpected happened. One by one, a few counselors nodded. Not many. But enough. Trevik narrowed his eyes. He leaned toward an assistant and whispered, Send the message now. Meanwhile, far from the council chamber, in the dark corridors of a hidden wing of the station, a signal was sent. A group of cloaked figures received the order. Eliminate the human, quietly. Back in the council chamber, Reese sat still, but his hand slowly reached inside his coat. Resting near something metal and old, something that had saved his life more times than he could count. A small, worn pistol. Late that night, inside his small guest quarters aboard the council station, Reese sat by the window, staring at the stars. He hadn't slept, he rarely did. Outside his room, the hallway lights flickered for just a second. Then, silence. He didn't move. A few minutes later, the door made a soft hiss and opened just a crack. 3 figures in black armor slipped inside, silent as shadows. They carried no lights, no weapons visible. They thought he was asleep. They thought he was just an old man. They were wrong. Reese's eyes snapped open. 3. Of you? He asked quietly. That's insulting. Before the first one could react, Reese grabbed a metal mug from the table and hurled it. It slammed into the first assassin's face with a loud crack. Shattering his visor, the others lunged. Reese moved like lightning. He flipped the table over, ducked low, and pulled something from under his bed. A long, black combat knife, old and worn. The second assassin swung a stun rod. Reese caught his arm, twisted, and broke it in one smooth motion. The third grabbed him from behind, but Reese slammed his head backward into the assassin's nose, then drove the knife into the attackers. One screamed, one bled, one ran. Reese stood alone, breathing hard. You want war? He whispered, blood on his face. You picked the wrong species. Minutes later, Council's security arrived. They found Reese sitting calmly, hands behind his back. 2 unconscious attackers lay nearby. The insectoid counselor arrived personally. What happened here? Reese stood slowly, asked Trevik. The council met again the next morning, but this time there was no footage. No debate, the air was thick with tension. Trevik sat straight-backed, calm as ever. But his eyes flicked to Reese, who stood near the center, still in his torn coat, with dried blood on his knuckles. Counselor Drael, the glowing orb, floated forward. We've reviewed the attack, they said. The assassins had stolen council. Security uniforms. Their identities remain unknown. Reese raised an eyebrow. Convenient. Drael's lights flickered. You handled the situation. With force. Reese nodded. No. I used exactly as much as I needed. Trevik spoke up, smooth and cold. You nearly killed 3 beings, Commander. This is not Earth. This is a place of diplomacy. Reese didn't flinch. And yet you sent killers into my room. Trevik spread his hands. You have no proof. Of that, Reese smiled slightly. Not yet. Suddenly the room darkened. Keelix tapped the main console. I asked the station's internal AI to play back security footage from the hallway outside Commander Reese's room. Trevik's face twitched. The screen lit up 3 figures in black, entering. One bore a small mark on his wristband emblem. Of the Solari military, muffled gasps echoed across the chamber. Keelix turned to Trevik. Would you like to explain this? Trevik stood. This proves nothing. But Reese stepped forward. You wanted to see what a human warrior could do? So you sent assassins. And now that you've seen it, you want to pretend it didn't happen. He walked slowly toward the center of the room. You watch old videos and think that's all? We are, but footage doesn't teach you fear. Not real fear. Well, he stopped. So let me teach you something real. He reached into his coat hand. This time pulled out a small rectangular device. He tapped it once. Suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with a combat simulation, a hologram that wrapped the room in light and sound. Gunfire, smoke, burning skies, screaming orders. The council was no longer in a peaceful room. They were on Voxra Prime. It's an alien planet where humans had fought and died to stop an invasion. The chamber filled with the sound of boots. Thundering through rubble, human soldiers. Yelling, one screaming for a medic, another laughing in the face of death. Then came the sound that made every alien in the room freeze. They're flanking left. Get the plasma on that nest. Move. It was Reese's voice, but younger, sharper, full of fury. On the holographic battlefield, the younger Reese charged through fire, dragging a wounded soldier while returning fire with one arm. Keelix whispered, Is that you? Reese nodded. Foxra, 47 years ago, 2,000 human soldiers held the line against 30,000 swarm units. We didn't have air support. We didn't have evac. We had grit. We had tactics. He paused. We had pain. And we had each other. The hologram faded. Silence returned. Reese faced them. Talk about peace like it's a gift. But peace is something we build with blood, with choices, a sacrifice. He stepped closer. You wanted proof of who we are. That was it. Keelix looked around the room. Some counselors were shaken, some humbled. Drill glowed softly. You should not have used violence. Reese nodded. I agree. He looked at Trevek. But you sent it first. Trevek stood up, face cold. This human is a threat. He should be removed. Reese didn't move. Keelix stood too. No, he should be heard. More counselors slowly stood with Keelix, then another, and another. Reese stood in the center, watching it happen, not with pride, but with quiet relief. Trevek left the chamber without another word, but he paused at the door and whispered, "This isn't over." Later that night, Reese stood alone on a balcony overlooking the stars. Keelix joined him. You could have killed those assassins. Reese nodded. I wanted to, but I didn't. Why not? He looked out at the stars. Because that's what they expected from a human? He glanced down at the scar on his hand, the one he got in his very first battle. I'm not here to prove we're powerful. I'm here to prove we've changed. The council had tried to silence the human with shadows. They sent killers. They failed. Now the question was no longer about if humanity was dangerous. The question was what happens when that danger walks into your home and doesn't strike back. Counselor. Trevek stood alone in a private chamber of the Solari embassy, pacing back and forth. His golden robes dragged across the polished floor as he muttered into a secure calm line. The human is gaining influence. Other counselors listened to him now. That must not happen. A cold voice replied on the other end. You already failed. 3 assassins, 1 old man, and he humiliated you. Trevek's eyes burned with shame. This time, we do it clean. No weapons, no blood. We'll break him another way. Meanwhile, in a quieter part of the station, Commander Reese sat at a small table in a public dining hall. No guards. No protection. Just a man with tired eyes, stirring cold tea. He was alone until a young alien approached him, hesitantly. Small, nervous, green-skinned. Excuse me, it said in a trembling voice. Are you the human soldier? Reese looked up slowly. Used to be. The alien sat down carefully. My father was rescued by your people during the Kreel Wars. He always said humans were monsters, but ones with honor. Reese gave a faint smile. Your father wasn't wrong. You're not afraid to walk around the station? Reese glanced toward the guards in the distance, then back at his tea. Being afraid never kept me alive. Paying attention did. Suddenly, a loud boom shook the station. The lights flickered. The young alien screamed and ducked. Reese didn't flinch. Oh, that wasn't a bomb, he said calmly. That was a power draw surge. Someone just overrode the security system. He stood, eyes sharp. They're coming again. 2 floors above, a team of black-suited operatives breached a side corridor. This time, they weren't here to kill. They had a different plan. They would discredit Reese publicly, humiliate him, make him react with violence in front of witnesses, so the council would have reason to exile him. They carried shock weapons, flash grenades, non-lethal tech, but what they didn't carry was understanding. They didn't understand why Earth had survived. Commander Reese reached a security console and typed quickly. Access denied, the system replied. Protocol lock engaged. Frowned. Someone was jamming him. He tapped his earpiece. An old Terran military model. Command override. Black Ember, show me station schematics. A map of the station lit up his lens. Red dots were moving toward him, 6 of them. Trying to trap me, he muttered. Good. Saves me the walk. He moved through the corridors like a ghost, Not fast, not loud, just prepared. He walked into a small maintenance room and tapped a few old tools into his coat. Metal rods. Plasma torch. He even grabbed an old vent wrench. Time to remind the galaxy, he whispered, why humans don't go quietly. Meanwhile, Trevik spoke before a private group of council members. We have reason to believe the human has violated station protocol, he lied. He's hiding weapons. It's triggered a lockdown. I request immediate action. Counselor Keelix narrowed his eyes. You're using fear to silence a soldier who saved your people. Trevik snapped. I'm using caution before he becomes a threat to us all. Then the room lights blinked. A red alert flashed across the screens. Station security breach subject. Commander Elias Reese Keelix stood quickly. What have you done? Back in the corridors, Reese reached an open intersection. He stopped and looked up at the security cameras. I know you're watching, he said. The attackers turned the corner, stun rifles raised. They expected him to run. He didn't. Instead, he pulled a metal pipe from his coat and threw it at a side panel, sparking the lights and blinding half the corridor. The flash stunned the first. The two agents, Reese moved like a predator. He grabbed the third by the collar and slammed him into the wall. The fourth aimed at Tazarus, yanked the attacker's arm, and twisted it. Forcing him to drop the weapon, the fifth pulled a shock baton. He got one hit in, right across Reese's ribs. Reese fell to one knee, but then he grabbed the alien's leg, yanked it forward, and slammed the attacker to the floor. One left. They tried to run. Reese didn't chase. Go ahead, he said through bloodied lips. Head on. Tell your masters I'm still standing. Turning point later in the central chamber, Reese walked in alone, bruised, bleeding, but upright. He dropped a cracked helmet at the council's feet. 6 men, 1 mission, same insignia. Keelix looked at it. The Solari mark was still visible. Is this proof? He asked. Reese shook his head. You don't need proof. You need truth. He turned to Trevik. You sent men to kill me, then to humiliate me. You wanted me to lose control. Trevik's voice was ice. You attacked security officers who came at me with unmarked gear and disabled cameras. Don't insult my mind, Trevik. The chamber fell silent. Reese stood in the center, arms open. I'm not here to make Earth look powerful. I'm here to show you why we endured. He took a breath. We didn't survive our wars because we were the strongest. We survived because we never stopped standing back up. He tapped his chest. That's what scares you. Not our guns, not our tactics, our will. Outside the council chamber, a crowd had gathered, dozens of aliens who had heard rumors of the attacks, who had seen the security alerts, who had watched old war footage of Reese holding the line on Voxra. Prime now they saw him walk out, limping, but not afraid. A young alien child stepped forward and offered him a flower. Reese bent down and took it gently. Thank you, he said. The child looked up. Are you really the scariest human in the galaxy? Reese smiled. No. The scary ones never talk. Then he walked away, the crowd parting around him like a ripple in space. Earth's future hung by a thread. The council was afraid. Not of humanity's weapons, but of its will. They had failed to silence the human, failed to discredit him. So now, they would try to control the entire planet. Inside the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, tension hung like smoke. Trevik of the Solari stood at the center. Behind him floated a new proposal. Galactic Protocol 7. Immediate oversight and control of pre-ascension worlds. Its true meaning was simple. Seize control of Earth. Strip its governments. Install Union advisors. Prevent humanity from ever becoming a threat again. Trevik raised his voice for all to hear. Humanity has proven unstable, violent, dangerous. It must be protected from itself. Earth will surrender leadership to the Union until it is deemed. Safe whispers echoed through the chamber. Some agreed. Some hesitated. One remained silent in the observation booth. Commander Reese sat perfectly still, watching, listening, judging. Judging tread pointed toward him. Even their representative is a former soldier. What kind of peaceful species sends a killer to speak for them? The council laughed. Reese stood up. No smile, no anger, just quiet resolve. He walked to the center without asking permission. "You want to take Earth?" he said calmly. "Then let me show you who we are first." He tapped a control chip. The chamber walls lit up, revealing a live broadcast from Earth. Millions of humans standing in silence, in every country, on every continent. Not chanting, not protesting, just standing. Veterans in uniform, doctors in scrubs, farmers, engineers, teachers, children, all staring into the sky. All united Counselor Dreel floated forward. "What is this?" Reese's voice was low, but powerful. "This is Earth's message to you. No threats, no speeches, just this." He pointed to the screen. "You see chaos? We see choice. See violence? We see survival. You see fear. We see family." He looked at Trevik. "You want Earth to surrender?" He turned to the full council. "Then understand what that means. You're not seizing control of one planet. You're challenging the spirit of 10 billion souls who refused to kneel when the sky fell." He tapped the control chip again. The screen changed. Now it showed human ships in orbit. Old warships retrofitted for peacekeeping, not a fleet of conquest, eh? Wall of steel and fired defensive. Formation, holding the line, waiting not to attack, but to protect him. Counselor Keelik stood. "Are those ships armed?" Reese nodded once. "Fully. But they're not here to start a war." He paused. "They're here to finish one if you force it," Trevik scoffed. "You bring weapons into a debate about peace?" Reese turned to him, calm and unshaken. "We bring reminders. Earth doesn't start fights, but we never run from them." He looked around the room. "We didn't come here to dominate. We came to understand. And you feared that more than our weapons." The room was quiet now. No one laughed. Not anymore. Suddenly, station's emergency alert flared. A flashing red symbol. "Outer colony attack minus Varnus." Enemy unidentified gasps echoed. Counselor Dreel turned pale. "That's a peaceful colony. We have no defense perimeter there." Keelix looked at Reese. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" Reese nodded. "We picked up chatter days ago. Tried to warn you." Trevik growled. More human lies, but a projection appeared behind. Them all live footage. A small alien colony burning under skies filled with black shifting swarms. Ships twisted like insects. Hundreds. Thousands. The Kreel remnant, Reese said. "The ones we warned you about 5 years ago. You didn't. Listen." Keelix turned to the full council. "We need to send help now." Trevik hesitated. "We have no forces in that sector. It's too far." Reese stepped forward. "Earth has ships in range. Let us go." Trevik narrowed his eyes. "So you can play hero?" Reese shook his head. "So we can prove something." Looked around once more. "Not that we can fight, but that we choose to fight for others." Counselor Keelix turned to the others. "I motion to allow Earth's fleet to assist Varnus colony under emergency terms." Dozens of hands clawed, scaled featherdrows in agreement. Trevik scowled, but said nothing. Reese turned to leave. "If Earth's fleet succeeds," Keelix said, "the vote to seize Earth will be delayed." "It won't just be delayed," Reese replied over his shoulder. "It'll be cancelled." Then he was gone. In orbit, 12 old Terran warships received a single transmission. Authorization, Starshield. Engage defensive formation. Deploy to Varnus. Orders, protect the innocent. Show them who we are. The ships moved as one. Earth was not kneeling, Earth was rising. The galaxy had seen war before, but never like this time. It came with silence, steel, and a veteran who didn't want to fight but would if they forced his hand. In the darkness of deep space, above the peaceful colony world of Varnus, a human fleet dropped out of FTL. 12 ships dawdled, scarred war. Vessels from Earth's defense age, holes marked by plasma burns and asteroid strikes. No fancy curves. No smooth alien tech. Just armor. Just engines. Just purpose. The colony below had gone silent after a single, panicked distress call. No other fleets had responded in time. Only Earth. Commander Elias Reese stood aboard the lead ship. ISS broadsword. His face hard in the blue light of the command bridge, around him stood a crew of Earth's finest veterans. Scientists, ex-Marines, pilots who once flew into plasma storms for breakfast. An officer turned to him. "No response from the surface, sir." Reese said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Prepare for atmospheric drop. Ground recon only. No strikes unless confirmed threat." Another officer blinked. "Sir, Council authorized full deployment." Reese looked out at the stars. "They're expecting us to bring fire." He turned back. "So we'll bring hope." The Kreel Swarm was unlike any enemy the Council had faced before. Living machines, hive-minded ships, razor-sharp tendrils, and screaming plasma. They didn't invade for land. They invaded to erase. Earth had fought them once before and barely survived. Now they were back, and Reese knew exactly what they wanted. The first recon team touched down in a burned-out Varnus village. No bodies, no signs of battle, just emptiness. Then came the signal. 3 human scouts. Hearts pounding, followed a weak energy reading into a collapsed storage dome. Inside, they found 60 alien survivors huddled, starving, too afraid to speak. One child pointed upward with a shaking hand. "They're still here," she whispered. Reese got the call instantly. He didn't wait. Full orbital sensor sweep. Armed defense cannons. If they're hiding in orbit, we find them. But no weapons fired unless I say so, sir. We're sitting ducks. Reese narrowed his eyes. Then let them see us. Let them wonder. Back. At the Galactic Council station, the entire chamber watched the live feed from orbit. Trevik sneered. He lands troops on an active war zone and refuses to strike. This is why humanity cannot be trusted. Keelix snapped back. He saved 60 civilians without firing a single shot. Drill whispered. He's waiting, watching, planning something. They all leaned forward as the feed zoomed in. Reese wasn't deploying tanks. He was setting up beacons. The council chamber was stunned. Dr. Eel said softly, "It's like they're listening." Reese stood on the bridge, still and quiet, his voice barely above a whisper. Even the worst enemies can sometimes understand something stronger than war. Respect, restraint, purpose. The swarm ship rotated, then slowly rose back into orbit and vanished. Gone. No battle, no dead, just silence. Reese whispered to himself. They didn't come to destroy. They came to test. Back in the chamber, Counselor Keelix stood tall. "I move to cancel the vote on Earth's surrender. They have done what no one else in this room could," Drill added. "They brought peace. Not with weapons." Trevik stood slowly. "You still believe he's a hero?" Keelix turned to him. "He's more than that. He's what this galaxy needs." And for the first time in Galactic Union history, Earth received standing recognition. Not as a threat, but as a guardian. The warning was clear. The message had been sent. The Kreel understood that humanity would not strike first, but they made a fatal mistake. They took the humans' mercy for weakness. It began without sound. No alarms, no signals, just a sudden eclipse over Varnus colony. The Kreel Swarm returned not one ship this time, but hundreds. A wall of twisting, shifting, dark metal-living ships, clicking and screeching in frequencies that made lesser species tremble. Commander Elias Reese stood on the bridge of the ISS broadsword. Watching the enemy blot out the stars, his officers looked to him for orders. "Sir, the colony won't survive an orbital barrage. We're outnumbered 20-1. Reese didn't flinch. "Lock defense grid. Raise shields and broadcast this message to all ships." He pressed a button on his console and spoke. Voice steady. "To all Union members, evacuate civilians now." To the Kreel, "This is your final warning. If you strike, you respond." The enemy answered with fire. The first barrage from the Kreel Swarm struck like a rain of fire. Dozens of plasma bolts lit up the sky. The broadsword shook violently, shields flaring white-hot. Other Earth ships took formation around the colony. To flee, but to form a protective dome, their hulls overlapping, weapons cold, shields glowing. They had practiced this formation for years. Earth's last wall. Reese gave one command. Hold. Do not. Fire. His crew stared at him in disbelief. Sir, they're cutting through our shields. They're testing us. Don't blink. Outside, the alien swarm curled like predators, circling, scanning, waiting for Earth's ships to panic. But they didn't. They held still. One ship took a direct hit and lost outer shielding. Reese's voice cut through the chaos, reinforced with the unity. Pull them into formation. We don't break rank. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the live broadcast was silent. Every member watched, stunned. Why isn't he fighting? Back? Asked Counselor Drayle. Trevik snarled. Because he's weak? Keelix whispered no, because he's showing the galaxy what true strength is. Back at the colony, the civilians huddled underground. Alien children cried. Parents held each other. Many had never even seen a weapon before. Then, above them, a ship fell. It was the Pathfinder, hit hard and breaking apart. Reese's voice roared across the fleet. Initiate Operation Aegis. Redeploy form the shield line. The remaining ships broke their perfect circle and formed a living barrier between the swarm and the swarm and the swarm. They weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to protect. The Kreel finally moved in. No. More waiting. No more testing. They charged hundreds of their living ships. Dove straight into the formation, and then Reese gave the order, fire. The sky exploded. Human railguns, EMPs, fusion cannons roared to life. The last wall spoke. Each Earth ship unleashed years of built-up fury, tactically. Perfectly aimed. Not one stray shot struck the planet below. The Kreel ships were fast, deadly, but not ready for the wall of focused human retaliation. Within minutes, 40 swarm vessels were reduced to burning wreckage. Still, the swarm kept coming, and still the humans stood. On the broadsword, a young officer screamed, "Hull breach on!" Deck 3, another shouted. "We're losing the Resolute. She's going down." Reese grabbed the cum. "No one dies today. Push forward. Anchor the line." He locked eyes with the swarm outside the viewport. If Earth falls, we fall protecting others. If we survive, the galaxy remembers this day. This is who we are. The Kreel began to retreat. Not because they were beaten, but because they were confused. These humans, they didn't act like others. They didn't fear death. They didn't abandon the weak. They didn't run one by one. The swarm peeled off, gone, leaving silence and smoke, and stars glowing through the wreckage. The broadsword's lights dimmed. Sparks flew, but they were still standing. Reese sat down slowly in his chair, bleeding, exhausted, but alive and victorious. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the vote screen blinked. Emergency decree. Earth's status from threat to. Ally Kellic stood, solemn. Let the record show when war came, Earth did not conquer. It protected. And one human held the line when no one else could. Even Trevik said nothing. He simply sat back, staring, understanding too late. What kind of species humanity truly was? They feared Earth. They questioned its place in the stars. But when the galaxy stood on the edge of war, it was a human who showed them who they truly were. The skies over Varnus were quiet now. No more Kreel Swarm, no more sirens. Just the drifting remains of human warships burned, battered.
Died.
Victorious Commander Elias Reese stood on the ruined bridge of the ISS Broadsword. His hand pressed to a cracked console, blood on his brow, voice steady as he spoke into the final transmission. This is Commander Reese. Human fleet reports. Victory confirmed. Survivors rescued. Colony secure. The message echoed across the stars, to every outpost, every race, every world that once looked at Earth with fear. In the Galactic Council chamber, silence reigned. They had watched every second, from Earth's restraint to Earth's retaliation. Earth's unshakable shield. And now the question on everyone's mind wasn't what is Earth, it was what is Earth to us? Counselor Keelix stood before the chamber, I call for an emergency vote to grant Earth Guardian species status. Gasps echoed across the room. Trevik snarled. Guardian, are you insane? That title has not been granted in 2,000 cycles. Drill leaned forward. They earned it. Not with weapons, with sacrifice. Keelix played the footage again. A human. Destroyer absorbing a blast meant for refugee ships. Medic tending alien children with no translator. Reese pulling a Varnus elder from rubble with one arm and a weapon in the other. Keelix's voice rang out. They did not protect Earth's territory. They protected ours. Humanity has flaws, yes. But today, they reminded us what hope looks like. Meanwhile, Reese stood in the hangar, watching his crew unload survivors. Varnus, citizens, children, entire families. Some saluted. Some wept. A small alien boy walked up to him, wide-eyed, and held out a hand-drawn picture of a human ship shielding. A village, the boy whispered. I want to be brave like you. Reese knelt down slowly, his voice hoarse. No, kid. Be better. Be brave before the war starts. Back in the council chamber, the vote began. Yes, 689 number 141. The screen flashed. Motion PSSC to Earth. Guardian species from that moment on. Earth wasn't feared, it was respected. The galaxy began to change, where once Earth had been kept. At arm's length, now ambassadors arrived asking for alliances. Where once they saw humans as unpredictable, now they saw them as something else, a species that bleeds for strangers, a force that holds the line, people who fight not for conquest, but for duty. At Reese's side, a council representative asked, What should we tell the galaxy Earth? Wants in return? Reese looked out the window at the stars. We don't want tribute. We don't want territory. We want one promise. If the darkness returns again, stand with us. Years later, at the newly founded Intergalactic Peace Corps, young recruits from dozens of species trained under human instructors. They learned how to fly under fire, how to speak before shooting, how to hold the line without hate. Above the training hall was a quote carved in stone, Reese's words. War is easy, mercy is hard. We choose the hard road, because someone must. A single human soldier had stood in silence while Earth's war footage played. Now, the whole galaxy stood up with him, and the stars would never forget.